Good day to everyone joining us, and welcome to today's X Talks webinar. Today's talk is entitled Using Imaging in Clinical Trials to Improve Data and Decisions. My name is Sonia Hunt, and it's my pleasure to be your X Talks moderator for today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes. This presentation includes a Q&A session with our speakers. This webinar is designed to be interactive, and webinars work best when you're involved. So please feel free to submit your questions or comments for our speakers throughout this presentation by using the questions chat box, and we'll try to attend to your questions during the Q&A session. Now, this chat box is located in the control panel, which is found on the right-hand side of your screen. If you require any assistance, please do not hesitate to contact me by sending a message using that chat panel. I'd also like to welcome our attendees viewing this presentation from our LinkedIn Live event, and I encourage you to submit questions as well via the comments tab. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode. Please note that this event will be recorded and be made available for streaming for those who register on xtalks.com. At this point, I'd like to thank AG Madnet, who developed the content for this presentation. AG Madnet is the host for today's webinar, and would like to thank you all for your attendance. AG Madnet is a leading provider of intelligent technology solutions for clinical trial operations, medical affairs, and safety, with expertise built across more than 2,400 trials in 20 therapeutic areas and over 2 decades of experience optimizing clinical trial processes for more than 700 clients. Judy, the company's flagship cloud-based process management platform, is designed to reduce operational complexity, ensure regulatory compliance, and improve data integrity across global studies. Judy keeps trials in motion, enabling client teams to drive performance. Judy provides one unified workspace with streamlined end-to-end collaborative processes. Judy enables client teams to reduce friction, accelerate timelines, and deliver high-quality results. Given its advanced reporting and analytics, Judy also enhances data insights and empowers robust, data-driven decision-making. AG Madnet has invited Median Technologies, a partner from within its partnership ecosystem, to collaborate on delivering today's webinar topic. Median Technologies pioneers AI medical imaging, driving greater accuracy in early cancer diagnosis and treatment. The company delivers imaging services for oncology trials and develops Ionis, an AI-powered suite of software as a medical device for early diagnosis of solid tumors. Median ICRO is a global leader in central imaging services for oncology clinical trials across China, the US, and Europe. Median ICRO extracts high-quality data from medical images and streamlines the clinical trial process for sponsors, ensuring speed, consistency, and regulatory-grade quality at every step. Through their imaging lab, its AI-powered imaging entity unlocks deeper insights from image data to optimize patient selection and identify predictive biomarkers for precision medicine. Now I'd like to welcome and invite my co-moderator for today's event, and she's Catherine Tyner, AG Madnet's Head of Clinical Strategy. And Kathy, with 28 years of clinical research experience, she has led multiple functional departments, including clinical safety, 24/7 medical monitoring coordination, vendor management, and oversight group management, which encompasses the coordination of clinical endpoint committees, data monitoring committees, core laboratories, eligibility committees, and other expert panels. She and her teams have delivered over 500 clinical trials, including complex mega trials across diverse therapeutic areas. She has also made significant contributions to industry thought leadership and best practice guidance throughout her career. Kathy is a seasoned senior business leader who is dedicated to delivering strategic insights and creative solutions. Now, with her introduction out of the way, I'm going to pass the mic over to Kathy to welcome our speakers. So Kathy, when you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you so much, Sonia. I really appreciate the introduction. And I want to thank all of our audience members who have joined the webinar today. We're excited to be speaking with you about this important topic. And I'm also very pleased to introduce the two speakers we've lined up for you today that both bring a wealth of experience and insight. And I will ask them to introduce themselves. So first, I will hand over to Jamie Beck for his introduction.
Great, thank you, Kathy. It's a great pleasure to meet everybody today, and thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to share a little bit about myself. I'm Jamie Beck. I'm the head of portfolio expansion and new services at AG MedNet. I've been in the life sciences space for more than 15 years with a specific focus on implementing clinical technologies in diverse therapeutic domains such as oncology, cardiometabolic, CNS, and immunology. Guided project teams in configuring, testing, and deploying trial technology solutions across many of these different diverse domains. I've also spearheaded multiple deployment of hundreds of protocols and technology setups, including facilitating drug approvals and crafting regulatory approved ECOA forms. And it's also my great pleasure to introduce my colleague today, Deandra Donald from Medium. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Jamie. Hi, my name is Deandra Donald. Again, thank you for joining us for this call today. I have over 5 years of experience in clinical research within the field of medical imaging. I have a proven track record of successfully leading late phase and retrospective oncology trials across Europe and North America. And I also hold a PMP certification in project management, underscoring complex clinical studies with precision and strategic oversight. Thank you. Next slide.
Thank you. So I would like to get us started today and set the stage for our topic by explaining the role and the purpose of core laboratories in clinical research. And that starts actually with explaining the concept of adjudication. If we could go back to the previous slide, please, that would be great. So the concept of adjudication is that there are certain outcomes and decisions on clinical trials that are subjective in nature. And in order for those outcomes to be normalized so that they are reliable for statistical analysis and for key decision-making on clinical trials, it's often important to have some kind of central review process to achieve the normalization and standardization of those data and decisions. So there are many different kinds of adjudication. Some of you may be familiar with clinical adjudication committees, and their role is typically to look at clinical events that are subjective in nature and provide either efficacy or safety outcomes that are used in the analyses for the clinical trial in those two areas. There are other types of centralized decision-making. For example, we're probably all familiar with using a central lab. And that is a process where lab results are normalized. So what is the difference between a central lab and a core lab? My explanation for that is a central lab analyzes like a blood draw or other types of laboratory data and provides a result, an assessment. Whereas a core laboratory is really an adjudicating body. So the core laboratory is looking at different types of lab data and also, like the adjudication committee, providing an adjudicated outcome either for efficacy or safety. They're just doing that based on laboratory data, and the kind of laboratory we're talking about today, the core laboratory type would be imaging core laboratory. But again, core labs can look at data in all different types of areas. So the big distinction is a core laboratory is adjudicating based on lab data, whereas a clinical endpoint committee would be adjudicating primarily based on source documents from patient charts and maybe some CRF data. But they're still both adjudicating bodies, and that's important to keep in mind. Another unique aspect for core laboratories is that core laboratories can also be asked to provide eligibility determinations based on the lab data. And we're going to be talking today about how core laboratories do that with imaging data. So I wanted to provide that overview before our speakers begin with the topic. They're going to focus on this topic we have for you today and discuss the imaging workflow and how imaging in clinical trials can improve data and decisions. So I will hand over to the next slide and ask Jamie and Deandra to begin their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, for that overview. To start, imaging workflows don't have to be complex, but they can end up that way when they are not optimized. In fact, there are 6 essential basic processes that need to be completed in an imaging workflow, and these include acquisition, collection, tracking, quality control, query management, and analysis. However, clinical teams struggle efficiently to operationalize the imaging workflow, and it can end up looking like this diagram, which, as you can see, is chaotic with multiple juggling plates and labor-intensive processes.
Thanks, Deandra. Just summarize some risks and pitfalls that are inherent in this kind of unoptimized workflow. This workflow starts with sites shipping images by courier, which can be very expensive and cause a lot of delays. There are multiple trackers that are then needed, including site tracker, 2 or more core lab trackers, and even 2 or more databases, which also require manual updates and reconciliation. There are also multiple data loops where slowdowns can also occur. And also, most concerning, the faulty structure of this process can lead to unanalyzable data. And since the images assessed by core labs are typically used for important decisions such as patient eligibility and endpoint outcomes, data loss is a serious risk and must be mitigated. Next slide, please.
Thank you. There are a number of challenges to keep in mind and plan for when setting up an imaging workflow. The first is ensuring that high quality data is acquired by the sites. This is essential to ensure images are being acquired per the protocol. If sites don't acquire set required imaging correctly, they won't be analyzable, which can ultimately affect endpoint outcome and key patient decisions regarding eligibility or treatment. Image acquisition can be challenging to collect for clinical labs, as sites do not have access to the same resources. There's differences in standard of care, various site policies for image ammonization, as well as differences in staff experience in image acquisition. To mitigate this risk and prevent critical data loss, best practice is for the core lab to extensively train the sites and provide an image acquisition guideline on how to properly acquire the necessary images. This guideline highlights de-identification requirements, scan collection instructions, and recommended parameters across several modalities. It may also be necessary to conduct a test data validation process if the imaging requirements are complex. Test data validation is a process where sites provide test images to the core lab and are signed off on their technical data acquisition prior to producing any actual study data. Depending on the study and the image acquisition requirements, it may also be important to perform a qualification process for the site's equipment that will be utilized to produce test study data before the site starts acquiring any patient images. This extensive training process allows the core lab to address any potential technical or acquisition issues in order to prevent downstream delays on reads, patient outcomes, and trial timelines. The next area of challenge is collecting the image data from the site. There are a number of issues that can factor in here. As discussed on the previous slide, courier shipment of images can result in significant delays, so best practice is online collection of electronic images. Sites may overlook performing images or may delay uploading them, so another best practice is to proactively manage the site's imaging requirement by providing them with reminders for submission. Reconciliation and tracking of the images are performed to ensure that sites are uploading the scans as per the imaging schedule, as well as uploading the necessary modalities required per the protocol. There are also some regional challenges that can be barriers for image submission by sites. University sites in the US, for example, may have network restrictions that do not allow or are more challenging for users to upload images electronically. Within China, there are networking and internet policy issues that can also lead to challenges for site upload. It is beneficial for your core lab to have a global footprint because that allows you to leverage the regional expertise by being co-located with sites in all the areas which are collecting images and collecting patient data. A core lab that provides 24/7 support, as well as can provide translations, ensures cultural representation, and reduces language barrier issues across the regions, which is essential for communication efficiency.
Great. Thank you, Deandra. Another key challenge is in the confidentiality of the imaging data. This collection of images must be compliant with data protection laws and project-specific redaction requirements. There are many different types of data in images that must be redacted, which includes PHI and PII, but as well as study-specific data such as protocols, study drug information, and study arms. This data can be located in various places that is not easy to remove manually, such as embedded in structured reports, dose reports, overlays on the images themselves, as well as even written to the image itself. Some best practices that will ensure compliance and mitigate the risk of patient information escaping includes training the sites on the study-specific redaction requirements and methodology, utilizing a HIPAA and GDPR compliant database and system to collect the images, offering online built-in redaction tools that are tailored to support all users in performing the specific kind of redaction that is needed for the image being uploaded, providing on-screen reminders for the sites to prompt them to perform redaction prior to completing an image upload within the system. Lastly, another area of challenge involves preventing complexity in the imaging workflow. We saw on the previous slide, it's critical to build an optimized imaging workflow so that friction can be reduced, costs can be minimized, timelines can be expedited, and data loss can be prevented. Best practices that involve optimizing imaging workflows include a single unified workspace for all stakeholders to participate in the end-to-end process. This will break down any silos and smooth any handoffs between team members, as well as building streamlined, smart, and scalable workflows, which prevents the kinds of slowdowns that can happen in any manual process. Leveraging process automations and automated centralized tracking will help remove friction, reduce effort, and improve the ability to report out on status. Using a built-in query management tool will enhance the data quality and streamline communication between all team members. Leveraging programmed reminders will expedite the completion of tasks and the movement of data to the next stage within the workflow within a timely manner. Next slide, please. Great. Since 2012, our organizations have partnered on 200+ clinical trials, delivering solutions that range from simple image capture and de-identification to much more complex study designs and with demanding timelines. Our experience spans the full spectrum, whether ensuring seamless image transfer or working together to design intricate workflows under tight operational pressures. Next, we're going to showcase one of our more complex case studies to demonstrate how our strategic approach, best practice execution, and process optimization transformed an initially unoptimized workflow into a streamlined and optimized solution.
This study was a phase 2 study that involved 15 sites across US and Canada with the inclusion of 49 patients. High quality MRI images were required to be collected every 6 weeks, and at least 5 MRI sequences were required to be collected. Sites were requested to upload these images to Medium within 24 hours of acquisition. Once images were received in accordance to the image acquisition guidelines, central reader analysis was required to be assessed within 48 hours. This expedited workflow involved 2 time-sensitive objectives, which were to be used for eligibility determinations and also for endpoint outcomes. Expedited analysis for patient eligibility had to be met so that eligible patients would not be lost and so that enrollment milestones would be met. Endpoint outcomes expedition was required because there was a number of critical data reviews that required outcomes throughout the study, such as quarterly data safety monitoring board reviews and 2 interim analysis.
Thank you, Deandra. As the intro noted, this trial was very complex, and as such, Median and AG MedNet partnered and worked together through some following solutions that I'd like to talk about. Median utilized Judy to maximize the efficiency of the central reading process. And during the project startup, but before sites were provided any study data, Median provided site training and performed test data validation within Judy. The test data validation process was a key step to ensure that each site would be able to meet the stringent protocol requirements for MRI acquisition, which would ultimately prevent any data loss. During project startup, Median provided the sites with a detailed image acquisition guideline, and all of the training materials, including these guidelines, were stored in Judy for ongoing reference by the sites. Sites uploaded electronic MRIs directly into the browser-based Judy platform, which ensured that tight turnaround for MRI submission was met and eliminated courier costs for exam transmittal. Any issues with site uploads were quickly addressed by both Median and AG MedNet's 24/7, 365 technical support, and Median leveraged Judy's process management technology and automation features to expedite workflows for MRI collection, reconciliation, QC, data cleaning, and data analysis, all of which benefited significantly from having all of the patient's MRIs in one central online platform. Once MRIs were transferred to Median in Judy, Median leveraged their MRI analysis expertise in image assessment automation technologies for QC, reconciliation, additional PHI de-identification support, query support, and reader analysis, which helped achieve expedited core laboratory timelines. Next slide, please.
Throughout this study, our organizations implemented a highly optimized workflow by providing training with the image acquisition guidelines, providing any troubleshooting or technical support to the site, and perform test data validation to ensure the complexity of MRI scan acquisition was addressed, ultimately preventing data loss on any acquired images to ensure images were evaluable per study objectives.
A single unified workspace was utilized so that the sites and Median both had roles and access, which improved collaboration and process transparency between all team members. AG MedNet and Median reduced the number of trackers and systems needed to be used down to just two, the imaging system and the clinical data, greatly reducing the friction as well as improving overall status reporting and line of sight. We applied a built-in system with tools to optimize as well as automate several steps within the process. And these solutions enabled Median and the sites to be successful on this study.
We reduced query issues and submission delay by performing reconciliation on an ongoing basis. This reconciliation used patient visit information from the clinical database to establish expected image acquisitions, which prompted follow-up for submission of scans and clinical information required from the sites. The reconciliation led to timely receipt and quality control, preventing data loss, and helped establish the collection of analyzable images for efficient, consistent, and timely decision-making in patient care.
Next slide, please. We're very pleased to report that by implementing all of the items as we've discussed on the prior slide, we enabled our organizations to implement a process that fully optimized the imaging workflow and delivered a high performance result across the entire process.
The tight turnaround times for site submissions and core lab analysis were met, significantly reducing standard industry timelines. There was no data loss. All MRIs were performed as per the expectation of the sponsor and protocol, as well as were analyzable for radiologist assessment. The study imaging objectives for eligibility and endpoint assessments were achieved successfully, and by performing centralized eligibility, the sponsor was able to avoid any enrollment-based protocol deviations.
We leveraged our partnership and expertise of both of our individual organizations by tapping into the rich lessons learned and best practices we have gained over many years working together. We were able to maximize the complementary technology solutions we bring to the table, which ensured a successful delivery of this challenging project for our client. We were also able to support the clinical study decisions that were contingent on the integrity of the imaging data being collected. Sponsor was able to provide their DSMB with the complete and accurate median analysis outcomes. as well as enabling the sponsor to also have a complete and accurate median analysis outcome data set to support their planned interim analyses.
As a result, we were able to substantially improve the delivery of imaging data. The complex MRIs were collected and collected appropriately with the support of the image acquisition guidelines and 24/7 upload support for timely image submission that met the 24 hours image receipt expectation, thus leading to analyzable clinical assessments within 48 hours. This led to complete and prompt endpoint outcomes and timely eligibility decisions. Next slide.
As you've seen, a key success factor in optimizing imaging workflows is the enablement of technology within this process. At AGMedNet, we have a number of technological solutions in our Judy platform that optimize the imaging workflow, including, but not limited to, automated and recommended DICOM de-identification, automated imaging submission quality control checks, automated process tracking, built-in redaction tools, as well as an online query management system. Deandra, would you like to speak to the complementary systems that Median has that also optimize the imaging workflow?
Yes, thank you. Image reception and initial quality control are two crucial steps in ensuring the best possible assessment for each patient time point. To ensure the efficient treatment of queries opened with imaging sites, Median has developed a complete solution based on the Jira software through automated query management. Thanks to this automation, all repetitive tasks and reminders are managed automatically. This leaves more time to our imaging experts to focus on core issues related to intricate image quality parameters, ultimately reducing the time spent between image reception and read assessments by 15%. At Median, images get a second computer-assisted quality control of the image assessments. This computer-assisted evaluation flags the most recurrent issues, allowing imaging experts to save up to 75% of time used to ensure compliance with the study criteria, thus increasing the timely delivery of reader assessments and patient decisions. Our IC platform provides structured image and lesion data handling. Our automated and standardized process enforce image management and quality control with automated checks are conducted as early as possible and throughout the entire data collection process. Our solutions provide seamless automated interoperability with clinical trial management and electronic data collection systems. Our IC Analytics provides structured, ready-to-use reports for sponsors, reduces manual reporting efforts, and ensures audit readiness. And at Median, we also have a proprietary online reporting portal, which is a configurable system that provides advanced analytics. Each report provides status and performance metrics, evolution charts, and data trackers that can be filtered and exported. The ORP includes specific reports to monitor 4 essential activities, which are site management, image collection, query management, and read management. The IC portal plays an important role in efficient decision-making and risk mitigation, as it can also be followed and leveraged in real time by study sponsors. The tool also provides a useful transparency about Median's operations.
Thank you, Deandra. We also have some exciting innovations that we're working on in our near-term roadmap, which include an upgrade to Judy's zero footprint DICOM viewer to add in many additional features that will enable viewing and reviewing of images to be much easier by the users. Our organizations also recognize that AI is the future. We are excited about what can be accomplished when AI is introduced in conjunction with optimizing imaging workflows. Deandra, can you speak to a bit of what Median is using AI to achieve?
Yes, at Median, we can provide L3SMI body composition feedback to sites. Sites often lack immediate access to body composition data, which is critical for patient management. With an AI-driven solution, we can automatically extract body composition metrics from imaging data upon upload. We can also provide instant feedback to sites, enabling them to use this information for patient stratification and treatment planning. The operational benefit of this feature allows for enhanced site engagement and supports better patient care without adding burden to imaging operations.
Thanks, Sandra. Judy AI searches PDF documents for key terms that may contain PHI and recommends key terms that should be redacted to the users. It saves the QC reviewers time and effort reviewing site documentation, especially for long, complex documents. All of these developments will help reduce manual QC workload. It will minimize human error, accelerate image validation timelines. It will improve data consistency and support faster decision-making in supporting and providing timely and reliable patient care, which ultimately is our primary objective as contributors in the clinical trial industry.
Thank you. Thank you both, Jamie and Deandra. Jamie, I was wondering if you could take some time and explain how the first two items on this list function and elaborate a bit on the benefits.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kathy. Automated and recommended DICOM de-identification. This is important to highlight because when you upload images, as we all know, images contain DICOM data. And so all of those tags that contain and store data from the machines when they're uploaded can also contain PHI. So our system will automatically, programmatically remove PHI based off of the configurations we set up, which we have a series of recommendations for DICOM tags to remove based off of the hundreds of imaging trials that we have deployed using Judy. And then we will incorporate that by just automatically whitelisting and removing that data from the system. So it's not anything that the sites will have to be aware of. It will automatically happen in the background. And if you want them to manually de-identify, they can remove patient information or enter information such as year of birth instead of entering in a full date of birth, which is typically not allowed in a lot of countries. Automated imaging submission quality control checks. This is a very important step that happens automatically in the system that will remove things such as for MRIs, if the slice thickness is not within a certain parameter, it will automatically remove those images and flag those to the uploader so that they know that those images were not within the parameters that were set up for this trial. We can include multiple different kinds of submission quality controls to ensure that the proper exams are being uploaded as expected. So if an MRI is being expected, but they uploaded a CT, those would be removed, including ensuring that only DICOM files are uploaded within the system.
Thank you, that's great. And could both of you speak a bit? We've talked about prevention of data loss with regards to good training and the test data validation process up front. But what about preventing missing MRIs? Could you each speak to the best practices around ensuring that the sites actually do acquire and submit all of the expected MRIs?
Absolutely. So within Judy, they are required to upload the exams through the system, but if they for some reason don't upload the right exam or upload an incorrect exam, we do have built-in checks, as we noted, with the submission and quality control, but there's also a built-in query management tool to enable that the users at the median level or the reviewer can query the sites just to ensure that they've uploaded the correct documentation. And all of this would then be put into the audit trail that is then shared and is available for viewing to ensure that they're just uploading the correct documentation. And I know Median has their own additional query management system, and as well as different checks that they check on their side to ensure. Deandra, you want to speak a little bit towards that?
Yes, absolutely. We also perform our reconciliation. So based off of the information within the clinical database that the site will place the visit information into, we are able to determine whether what scans and what modalities are necessary to be collected at that visit. We will also have that acquisition date, if there is CT with contrast or without contrast, a PET CT, et cetera, just depending on the protocol requirements. Upon receipt of the images, we do check that all this information matches what is listed within the clinical database. And if there are any issues or we are missing images, for example, we received a CT image but not an MRI image, then we do query the site requesting that they do submit these images, because based off of the clinical database, those are images we are expected to be receiving.
excellent points. And in my experience over the years managing core laboratory workflows, I know that ongoing reconciliation, starting it at the beginning of the trial and doing it on a regular basis throughout, helps provide a timely prompt to any sites who may not have acquired an image on time, and it may still be within the window to acquire that image before it's too late and has to be missed. So early reconciliation, ongoing reconciliation, and proactive prompting of sites for any missing images is absolutely essential to staying on track for acquiring all the images, on top of all of the best practice we've talked about making sure that when they are acquired, those images will be analyzable. So it's important to plan for both of those objectives. Jamie?
Yeah.
Well, there's another good best practice as well. It's also having within the system a built-in reminder just to ensure that it does flag to the uploaders of what is expected and when. So that way it is understood when they do their uploads, when they should expect it and what is expected.
Yes, and as Kathy mentioned, it's important to do that reconciliation on an ongoing basis. At Medium, most of our clinical trials do go through a reconciliation either biweekly or monthly, depending on the turnaround times for studies, as some clinical trials do want to have assessments performed within a 48-hour time frame or 72 hours. We need to make sure that we have collected all these images so we can submit to the readers for patient decisions to be shared with the sponsor. So we do perform the reconciliation more frequently depending on the study.
Yes, and I know, Deandra, you were telling me about something that I think is a great innovation that supports the readers. I remember from many, many years ago when all of this was being done in a manual manner, that even within the reader process, readers were doing a manual review of the images, and then they were having to complete paper forms and then give those paper forms to someone who would double enter them into a database. Can you talk about how you have optimized that part of the workflow within Medium?
Yeah, absolutely. This is part of our IC advanced measurement platform. So we do have those integrated edit checks for the readers to make sure that they are reviewing the images to ensure, the target lesions are selected appropriately, as well as non-target lesions. We also perform monitoring with the readers across the study at increments. We also would perform intra-monitoring to ensure compliance with the readers. But then as far as documentation goes, our IC analytics, we're able to extract and create a PDF report with the reader assessments that clearly shows, maybe sum of diameters, volume as well, the target lesions, and it's all compiled nicely in a PDF form, which can be shared with the sponsor upon request.
That's great. And could you speak to how the advanced measurement platform factors into that workflow for the readers?
Yes, so for the readers, they have, excuse me, they have automated edit checks that allow them to determine lesion data information. So for the readers, previously it would be a lot of manual work that they would have to do. With our system, it's more integrated for the readers. They're able to look at one baseline time point, for example, and compare it to another baseline or the next following time points. And it screens them in a way that allows the reader to properly view it and have better opportunity to create their assessments in a more consistent manner, as well as timely. It saves time for them to be able to view it how we have it set up for them.
That's right, and it's my understanding too that when they have performed their on-screen measurements in the platform, that they don't have to fill out a paper CRF with those outcomes.
Correct. They are able to input their measurements within the system. And once they have completed their report, they will sign off on their report, and it will create a PDF document with all those measurements listed. The PDF document also displays some images showing those measurements, which can be helpful for the sponsor to see why the reader created these sorts of measurements or what they're seeing on their end.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Are there any other points on this list or any other points you have in mind that you would like to explain in a little bit more detail for our audience? Either of you?
I would, oh, go ahead, Jamie.
Say, one of the other benefits and important items is also just ensuring that the automation and reporting of the data out of the database is available. And one of the things that is always a good best practice in tracking the process through the workflow steps is being able to get that data out of the database. And so that's something that also is always made available and is easy to access, is to be able to see that ad hoc, any of that data within the database, whether it's the audit trail or whether you're looking for tracking on where things are within the workflow for uploading of those MRI images that were needed for that specific trial or for any uploads that are being handled through the Judy platform.
That's a great point, and that makes me remember some of the pain of many years ago when the process involved not as much reconciliation on an ongoing basis, more reconciliation prior to interim locks and database locks, and a requirement that I believe we have optimized now, that the data from the core lab database would be integrated into the clinical database, which would then generate a whole lot of reconciliation effort because it hadn't been reconciled up front, and then there was an integration requirement. And these days, that's been significantly optimized because, as we mentioned, the reconciliation starts at the beginning and is done on an ongoing basis. And that has allowed the optimized workflow to result in just the provision of a data set with those analyzed outcomes from the core lab that can be used along with the data sets that are generated from the clinical database by the value statisticians to produce the outputs that they need to produce leveraging that data. So we've skipped a step of integrating the data back into the clinical database and also reduce costs with that, because there are costs associated with that process. And we have saved time with eliminating the need for that step. And we have higher quality, more reliable and complete and accurate data from performing those reconciliations throughout the trial. Thank you. And Deandra, I think you wanted to highlight another point as well.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. And what you mentioned, plays into what I was going to say. With the sponsor, it's important to provide them, timely query management or image collection information. So with our online reporting portal, this is a great feature that we have. Again, it provides it monitors 4 essential activities: site management, image collection, query management, and read management. Within that site management page, it will have information on all the sites that we will be reaching out to for training. It provides information on when their training was completed, when they reviewed the IAG and completed the training on that image acquisition guidelines, and when they are considered as initiated, meaning that the sites can start uploading images through that Judy platform. It also highlights whether this site has issues transferring over through e-transfer, and we do provide courier materials to that site. So that's listed in there for the sponsor. They can pull and extract that information for them, especially at the startup of a study. It's important for them to have that information so then they get an overview of site initiations at the start of the study. At image collection also provides detailed reports on images that we have received. It shows the modalities, it shows the acquisition date, when we received it at median, our QC status, whether it does have a query, whether it's listed as done, meaning that it has completed our QC status. And it also provides a reconciliation update as well. So it may be that we had received a scan, but it's not listed within that clinical database yet for us. So in that case, it flags to us that the site needs to update their clinical database. So then we can ensure that the images we have received are images we are meant to be receiving. In that query management page, it has the details of that query, and not only just the initial query reason, but it also gives the detailed conversation behind the scenes with our imaging experts, because sometimes sites will go kind of back and forth on the reasoning of the query. So it does show that conversation. So if a query has been open for some time, for some reason, the sponsor is able to see that conversation and see that this query is being moved along and trying to be resolved with our team. And then the last one is that reader management page. In that reader management page, it shows, the status of our readers, if they have completed and if it has been submitted to the readers, meaning that there was no issues with the images themselves. This allows the sponsor to determine where it is in our read process. And once it is completed, we are able to share results. But this is a great feature for sponsors to fully see the transparency within our system and show where we are on our step in order to provide, decision-making patient information to the sponsor in a timely manner.
Excellent and very
comment I'd like to add to as well, Kathy, because regardless of all of the automations that we put into place, one of the key focuses, and I think an ultimate best practice for both of our organizations that we implemented, was finding the best ways and means to optimize use of the system and ensuring that it was easy to use, not just for our users of Median or the reviewers, but also for the sites, and ensuring that the sites aren't going to have any issues being able to complete the tasks that are expected of them within the time frame that they need. So all systems, as a best practice, should always be focused on optimizing the use of the system to be easy to use for all team members who are going to be participating in the trial. And that was one of our big focuses as well.
Yes, excellent. I'm thinking one more question the audience may be wondering. We've talked a lot about the importance of a test data validation process. Deandra, can you speak to how Core Lab handles when a site does not pass the review of their test data? What happens then?
Yes, so with that test validation process, we recommend this option for sites, especially when it comes to a complex study or a complex criteria such as Lugano or Reno. So having that test validation process in place allows us to ensure that images being collected are meeting the parameters as based off of the image acquisition guidelines. Now, if they submit to us and the test validation fails, we do reach out to the sites explaining why they failed, walking them through the process again and asking them to resubmit the images for that test. If once again they do fail, then that's when we go a little bit more intensive with the site. We will reach out to them and set up a web meeting, a WebEx meeting with them, troubleshoot any issues. If we need to get Judy involved for any reason, we also involve them as well. And we just sort of walk through the site and communicate with them one-on-one on what is expected. So then in the future, they are meeting the image acquisition parameters as required by the protocol.
So important. Thank you for explaining that. So Jamie, I'll turn back to you to wrap up this part of the presentation.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, and thank you, everybody. At this point, we're going to hand it over now back to Sonia, just to complete with some Q&A.
Well, before we get into the Q&A, I just want to say thank you very much, Jamie, Deandra, and Kathy for that very engaging presentation and tackling some of those questions there. And now we're going to open up for the Q&A portion of the webinar. So as a reminder to our attendees viewing this on GoToWebinar, please use that chat box to send in your questions. And if you are watching this via LinkedIn Live events, feel free to post your questions in the comments tab. Okay, so I did receive a bunch of questions from our audience, so let's see how many we can get through here. And the first one I have is, here we go, Kathy. Does the platform have any audit trail? Kathy?
Thank you, Sonia, for that question. It absolutely does support a full audit trail. It is 21 CFR Part 11 compliant, and that's a key factor in being compliant. And I will ask Jamie to elaborate on that answer, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything, every action captured or taken or done within our system, including the image uploads, is captured and stored and is searchable within our system. And this includes who did what action was taken, date and time, and also, if something was changed, then what was that item that was changed? So it provides all of the complete history of what occurred at any step along the process. Everything is attributable. And everything can be accounted for within the system. Deandra, I don't know if you guys have additional items that you want to speak to in regards to the audit trail from the median side?
Yes, we also have an audit trail as well, not only for image collection within our clinical trial management system, but then also within our IC platform, which is the reader platform. So if the reader goes in and makes a change or goes back on their own and makes a change to an assessment, we have that audit trail. If we have to query the reader for any reason, we also have that listed as an audit trail. And all of that information is collected because we obviously need to know if there are changes in assessments.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Let's jump to the next question here. This audience member is asking, Kathy, how do you provide training and image validation for sites that did not have on-site imaging and used an off-site third party?
Okay, that is a great question, and I will look to Deandra to address that.
Yeah, so sometimes we do get sites that end up using an offsite location to collect images. For us, when we do reach out to the site for training, we are requesting anybody that will be uploading the images into Judy to be trained. So in this case, if it was offsite imaging, an offsite location that was collecting the images, if they are not being transferred over to the set site, we could have somebody from that offsite location be trained, and then we would provide that access to Judy for them to upload the images.
So you would essentially treat them like the site because they are an extension of the site. They are acquiring the data on the behalf of the site. So it sounds like the same processes apply.
Correct. And the sponsor will provide us the communication on who we should be reaching out to initially. And then even when we reach out to the sites, since there is so much site overturn with personnel, we do request again who would be the main person or main people that will be uploading, and in that case then we do provide them that training so then they can upload. If there are any changes in site contacts, then they're free to reach out to us, and our site management team will also again provide the training necessary for that new person, so then they can also get that access to Judy and be able to upload images to us.
So even at the site or at this offsite location, there are probably always multiple technicians who could be providing the images that are needed for the study. So it sounds like you train the identified subset or even maybe the whole team if that is needed, so that you can cover all your bases and all the technicians who might provide the data have received the training.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And talking about training, we got a little lengthy question here. So first of all, this audience member saying, hi team, thanks for this very insightful webinar. So thank you for that. Coming from an AI and ML background, I wanted to learn more about how we can apply AI in clinical trials and drug discovery domain. A quick question. So presently, we are the challenges we have are bottlenecks to expedite and automate the clinical trials process, especially if we have a certain task is stuck in a path or so. But would love to learn more to figure out ways how AI can fit best here.
Okay, thank you. So I'll speak briefly to that
Okay.
and provide some context, and then I'll ask both of our presenters, starting with Jamie, to provide their thoughts. So at AG MedNet, our approach to using AI is we want to embed AI where it brings true value. That's the first principle always for us. And the second is that our AI tools are based on a principle called human in the loop. So we are not setting out to replace and fully automate in processes, not setting out to fully replace the human beings. Mm-hmm. So we deliver AI in a way that the human still makes the ultimate decision after the AI is proposing actions or proposing insights. And we think that's absolutely important because we see AI as an efficiency tool, something that will help drive more productivity. It will help drive higher quality, higher compliance, but still have the guardrails in place for that human review of what the AI is delivering for assessment. So I'll start with that statement and then ask Jamie to go a bit deeper.
Sure, absolutely. AI is absolutely, we know, the future and the focus, and a lot of folks have a lot of questions associated to that. And just like Kathy had just said, our focus was to assist the users when they're uploading and when they're doing reviews, right? And so right now, the focus is on AI-assisted redaction, right? Because getting rid of PHI, getting rid of PII, and anything that patients or anything that shouldn't be coming across that could introduce any kind of bias is key and is integral when you're looking at reviews. And if we can assist with that, and you know, Judy AI does assist with that to remove out that information, whether it's automatic through some of these SQC checks that we propose to go through the system and just automatically remove things, or to be able to assist them when they're doing a review of the document afterwards, just to ensure that everything was removed. We found that that was especially important to ensure that that is captured. One of the things I will say is we also track the metrics associated to redactions through the AI tool, so that way you'll also be able to know who is doing the redactions and what kinds of things they're redacting. We do not store PII or PHI, but we do provide metrics to understand that things were removed. That way you have an idea of whether it was the site that caught it or it was maybe the AI tool that caught it and it was caught as a post review. So a lot of area is very heavily focused on assisting the redaction to make that process much smoother and easier and ensure even further that PHI and PII does not escape or come across in anything that's uploaded with it.
Thank you, Jamie. And I'd like to add another guardrail that we're using as a best practice when we implement AI. And that is something our head of product feels very strongly about. And that is training the model, testing the model, but locking it down before the solution goes into production. So what we're not doing is using the learning, continuous updating, generative AI, because we want to make sure we have all the guardrails in place that AI is delivering what we expect it to deliver. That doesn't mean that we won't let it learn, but we're doing that in a controlled fashion. So do the training up front, do the testing up front, put it in production, keep training it, keep letting it update, and then roll out the next version locked down in the next release. So that's another thing that I think is important to bring forward. Deandra, did you want to weigh in on this question?
Sure. For us, I mean, currently right now we have the L3 SMI body composition. This is a AI-driven tool that we use. It's an algorithm output that provides a PDF, which is easily transferred to sites via an existing imaging platform, portal, or directly as a report. It could also be DICOMized to be redirected or archived in a PACS system. So for this, with this AI feature, it's more to support and provide reports in a timely manner regarding body composition. In our research and developments, we also have some future automation that we are working with in conjunction with AI, such as automating image QC, as well as automating eligibility feedback. And the eligibility feedback would be great in order to provide the sponsor timely decisions, especially around measurable disease per RESIST 1.1. And this helps with patient decisions. Obviously, within clinical trials and regarding patient decisions, we want to have these decisions brought to the sponsor very quickly, so then we don't lose the patient or potentially any data loss regarding this patient. So utilizing AI to support us in providing expedited assessments is our future.
Thank you so much, Deandra. And unfortunately, I think that's all the time we have to answer live questions here in the webinar. But I want to assure you all that if you submitted a question, we will make sure to follow through with you offline and provide you an answer to your question. We don't want any of the questions to go unanswered. So we will make sure that Sonia sends us all of your questions and provides us the ability to follow through with you on that. Back to Sonia.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Kathy, Jamie, and Deandra for answering all those questions. And thank you, Kathy, for informing our audience that, yes, we will follow up with them with the questions that have not been answered. And if you have any further questions, please direct them to the email addresses you see there on your screen. Now, a survey window will be, thank you for participating in this webinar. If for today's webinar, you will be receiving a follow-up email from X-Talks with access to the recorded archive of this event. A survey window will be popping up on your screen. Your participation is appreciated as it will help us to improve our webinars. Additionally, I have shared a link to view the recording of today's event in the chat box, which you can also share with your colleagues once they register for the recording here as well. And for those of you watching via LinkedIn Live events, we encourage you to visit xtalks.com to register for this event and gain access to such features as viewing the recording and more. And get even more out of today's presentation by downloading the supporting materials that we have available for you in the Handouts tab. So it's right under the Handouts tab there, an ebook for AG MedNet and a brochure from Median. Okay, now please join us in thanking our speakers for their time here today. So thank you very much, Kathy, Deandra, and Jamie. We hope you found this webinar informative. It has been my pleasure to be your webinar moderator. On behalf of the team here at X-Talks, we thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again. My name is Sonia Hunt. Thank you again. Bye for now, everyone. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone, but have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.